If you're reading this, chances are you've already taken multiple personality tests, and maybe you've landed on the rarest of all types, the INFJ. But what if I told you that despite identifying as an INFJ, you might actually not be one? Hold on. Before you click away, let's dive deep into what makes an INFJ really an INFJ, and why so many people mistakenly believe they fit into this unique personality type. Personality tests are a great tool, but they're often not nuanced enough to give you a complete picture of who you are. The reality is, many people, especially those who lean toward introspection and empathy, might believe they're INFJs, but they're actually mistyped. Today, we're breaking down 5 signs you might not actually be an INFJ and how you could have fallen into this misidentification trap. If any of these sound familiar, then it's time to reevaluate and explore your true personality type. One of the most defining characteristics of the INFJ personality type is their extraordinary emotional intelligence. INFJs don't just empathize with others, they possess a near psychic ability to understand and absorb the emotions of those around them. This ability to read the room and sense what others are feeling often happens automatically for INFJs, even without verbal communication. They can pick up on subtle emotional cues, body language, facial expressions, or even the slight change in someone's tone of voice, and accurately understand how someone is feeling, often before the person themselves fully realizes it. However, here's where the distinction lies. Many people mistake being empathetic or caring with being emotionally intuitive. These are not the same thing. While you may feel deeply for others and care about their emotional well-being, that doesn't necessarily mean you possess the kind of heightened emotional radar that is typical of INFJs. Being able to relate to someone's pain or offer a shoulder to cry on is empathy, something many personality types possess, but being able to intuitively understand why someone is upset, even when they haven't told you, is where the INFJ's emotional intuition shines. INFJs often have a deep, almost uncanny sense of why someone feels the way they do, often connecting the dots between a person's internal struggles and external behavior. For example, an INFJ might sense that a friend is feeling anxious, not because of something obvious like a bad day at work, but because of a long-standing unresolved issue in their life. They can pick up on these deeper, more complex layers of emotion and motivation without needing to ask too many questions. It's not just feeling with others, it's understanding their emotional landscape at a deeper, often unconscious, level. If you find that you often need people to express their feelings directly in order for you to understand them, or if you sometimes struggle to connect the dots between someone's emotional state and their underlying issues, this might be a sign that you aren't as emotionally in tune as an INFJ. This doesn't mean you're emotionally unaware, far from it. It's just that true INFJs process emotional data almost as if it's second nature. They don't always need words or explicit information to know what someone else is going through. For example, consider a situation where you're with a friend who seems a little off. An INFJ might instinctively feel that this person's anxiety stems from deeper life changes or emotional struggles that haven't been discussed. In contrast, someone who isn't an INFJ might only notice their friend's tension but wouldn't necessarily be able to pinpoint the underlying reasons without more direct conversation. This is the subtle but crucial difference between being empathetic and having the emotional radar of an INFJ. Another key point here is the INFJ's proactive emotional understanding. Unlike some personality types that react to emotions once they're clearly expressed, INFJs often anticipate emotional needs and responses. This doesn't mean that INFJs are always right about what others are feeling, but they tend to have a more nuanced sense of where emotions are coming from, often preempting how someone might react to a situation. They can be hyper-attuned to the moods and emotional shifts of others, sometimes to the point of absorbing and internalizing those emotions themselves. If you often feel blindsided by someone's emotional reaction, or if you frequently find yourself needing to ask clarifying questions to understand what's going on emotionally with someone, then you might not be an INFJ. INFJs often sense emotional turbulence before it surfaces, and their deep understanding of human emotion allows them to navigate delicate situations with a sensitivity that feels almost instinctual. This skill can make them invaluable as mediators, counselors, or friends who provide comfort, as they often understand the emotional stakes long before they've been articulated. Additionally, INFJs typically have a layered understanding of emotions. They don't just see the immediate reaction, anger, sadness, joy, but they understand the underlying emotional complexities. For instance, an INFJ might sense that someone who is angry is actually hurt or insecure. They look beyond the surface emotions to uncover the deeper, often hidden, emotional truths. If your emotional awareness tends to stop at the surface level, and you find it challenging to dig into the hidden motivations behind why someone is feeling a certain way, this might indicate that you're not using the same kind of emotional intuition that characterizes INFJs. Emotional depth is a hallmark of the INFJ, but that doesn't mean you can't be highly empathetic or emotionally supportive in other ways. Many personality types are incredibly caring and emotionally sensitive, but what sets INFJs apart is their ability to access these deeper emotional layers instinctively. Lastly, a common mistake that leads to the belief of being an INFJ is confusing emotional reactivity with emotional intuition. Some people feel emotions deeply and react intensely to the feelings of those around them, assuming that this depth of emotion indicates an INFJ type. However, INFJs are often more composed and measured in their emotional responses. They tend to observe and process emotions deeply before reacting, rather than getting swept up in the emotional wave. If you find that you react to others' emotions intensely but don't always understand the broader context or meaning behind those emotions, this could indicate that you're more emotionally reactive rather than intuitive, a trait more commonly seen in feeling types like ISFPs or ENFPs. Summary: emotional intelligence is a defining trait of INFJs, but it's more complex than just feeling others' emotions. It involves deeply understanding, anticipating, and sometimes predicting the emotional states of others without needing them to be explicitly communicated. If your emotional insights are more reactive or require more direct information to grasp the full picture, it's possible you're empathetic but not an INFJ. You might fall into another personality type that values emotional connection but doesn't share the same intuitive depth. INFJs are planners. They tend to thrive on structure, preferring to think ahead and consider long-term consequences before acting. Their dominant function, introverted intuition, (INI), allows them to map out scenarios and foresee the potential outcomes of their actions well before they happen. This naturally leads INFJs to be more cautious and deliberate, often appearing less spontaneous. If you're someone who often makes decisions on the fly, loves being in the moment, or thrives on the thrill of unpredictability, it's likely you've been mistyped. However, true INFJs often find spontaneity stressful and prefer to stick to a well-thought-out plan. So, if you regularly find yourself winging it and embracing uncertainty, your true personality might lean more toward a perceiver, P, than a judger, J. INFJs believe in their visions for the future, but they understand the complex steps required to make those visions a reality. Their idealism is always paired with a practical mindset, guided by their auxiliary function, extroverted feeling, FE, which helps them navigate the emotional and social realities of life. This combination means that while INFJs dream of a better world, they remain firmly aware of the real-world obstacles that need to be overcome to achieve it. For instance, an INFJ who cares deeply about social justice might dream of a more equitable society. However, they won't just talk about the ideal, they'll actively seek ways to bring that vision to life by supporting policies, engaging in community work, or even just guiding people toward meaningful discussions. If your idealism tends to remain in the realm of lofty ideals, or you find yourself constantly dreaming of a perfect world without a clear idea of how to get there, you might actually be more aligned with another personality type, such as the INFP. INFJs and their moral compass. In contrast, some other personality types, like INFPs or ISFPs, might avoid conflict so persistently that they never engage, even when it's in their best interest or when it's necessary to protect someone else's well-being. INFJs recognize that not all conflict is bad. In fact, they understand that healthy conflict can lead to growth, both personally and in relationships. They see conflict as an opportunity to clarify misunderstandings, strengthen bonds, and bring issues to the surface that need to be addressed. INFJs dislike unnecessary drama and conflict, but they know that certain conflicts are inevitable and can't be swept under the rug. They are skilled at addressing these situations with grace and tact, but they don't shy away from the hard conversations. In fact, they often feel a responsibility to address conflicts, especially if others are too afraid to do so. In contrast, personality types like ISFJs or even ENFPs might avoid conflict altogether, focusing more on maintaining harmony in the moment rather than addressing the root cause of tension. These types may struggle to confront people, especially if they fear damaging relationships. An INFJ, on the other hand, understands that sometimes, confronting difficult issues is necessary to preserve the integrity of the relationship in the long run. They may struggle to relate to the mainstream interests of their peers, feeling like they're always thinking a few steps ahead or asking questions that others aren't considering. INFJs often feel like they're searching for their tribe, a small group of like-minded individuals who share their values, vision, and depth of thought. Until they find these rare, meaningful connections, INFJs may feel like they're wandering through life alone, misunderstood, or emotionally disconnected. There are many personality types that can experience a sense of alienation for different reasons. For example, INFPs may feel like outsiders because they're driven by their internal values, which may not always align with societal norms. INTJs might feel like outsiders because of their independent, strategic way of thinking, which can set them apart from more emotionally driven types. So, while feeling like an outsider can be a key indicator of being an INFJ, it's not exclusive to this personality type. If your sense of feeling different comes from your intellectual independence, your creative uniqueness, or your deep internal values, you might be mistyping yourself as an INFJ. INFJs feel like outsiders primarily because of their complex inner worlds, their visionary thinking, and their need for depth in relationships, not just because they don't fit into societal expectations or norms. For INFJs, the sense of being an outsider isn't just a phase or something they experience in specific situations, it's a persistent feeling of otherness that follows them throughout their lives. Even in environments where they're respected, loved, or included, INFJs often feel that there's something fundamentally different about them. This feeling can be hard to articulate, but it's a defining part of their experience. They might feel out of place in family gatherings, social groups, or even close friendships, not because they're socially awkward or introverted, though they might be, but because their inner world feels so different from the external world around them. If you don't experience this constant sense of being on the periphery, if you generally feel at ease in most situations and rarely feel fundamentally misunderstood, you might not resonate with the deep outsider syndrome that characterizes INFJs. While everyone feels out of place from time to time, for INFJs, it's more than just an occasional feeling, it's a core part of who they are. The outsider syndrome is a deeply ingrained aspect of the INFJ personality. It stems from their introspective nature, complex inner world, and desire for deep, meaningful connections. If you don't feel this persistent sense of being different or misunderstood, it could be a sign that you're not an INFJ. While many people feel out of place at times, INFJs experience this as a chronic, lifelong feeling that shapes their interactions, relationships, and view of the world. If you're more at ease in social situations, find it easy to connect with others, or rarely feel misunderstood on a deeper level, you may not be experiencing the outsider syndrome that so many INFJs identify with. If any of these signs resonate with you, don't panic. Misidentification is common when it comes to personality types, especially with the mystique surrounding the INFJ type. Understanding your true personality type is a journey, and discovering that you might not be an INFJ can actually lead to greater self-awareness. Perhaps you're an INFP, ENFJ, or another type that shares similar traits, but with key differences. At the end of the day, your personality type is simply a tool to help you better understand yourself and others, it's not a box you have to fit into perfectly. If you've been mistyped as an INFJ, it doesn't mean you're any less unique or complex. Now, it's your turn, what do you think? Have you ever felt like you might have been mistyped as an INFJ? Or are you convinced that you are, in fact, the rarest personality type? Drop a comment below and let's get the conversation started. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Psych IQ for more content on personality psychology, self-development, and all things mind-related. If you're intrigued by this discussion or want to explore your own personality type further, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's figure this out together. Also, make sure to subscribe to Psych IQ and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. We've got more deep dives into personality types coming your way.